created a whole new Minecraft world a good while ago, and I've successfully created a couple of my favorite Minecraft builds so far in just the first 1000 days of the world. I've made a video on those couple days already, so if you're interested in watching the first 1000 days, you can find the link in the description. But for today, here are another 1000 days building in my fantasy forever world. In today's video we're going back to our origin, setting foot back onto our starter islands. As nice as it was building the harbor city next to our little tower in the last episode, it is just time to get back to our starter area again. And not just because the area looks quite nice. I just haven't forgotten about the islands over here yet, and we're not done with them. Since I have a lovely plan for today's episode, because we're building the last, I'd say, a larger island here, with a couple of twists though, of course. And the location for the island will be exactly here, since it's quite flat and accessible for building an island, since we don't have to drag the terrain too far down into the ocean. So, having a small plan in mind, we gotta make sure we have the resources needed for this little project. Luckily, we do still have around 20 shulkers full of materials from building the harbor city in the last episode, and there's still some resources left over here in the starter base if I'm not completely wrong. So we shouldn't have to farm too many materials. As you can see, like, there is no stone and we probably do not have enough coal ore, so those two things we definitely do have to farm. So we're gonna take a couple of shulkers for a little farming trip, or a large one, since we need at least one shulker full of coal ore. But sure, why we need so much coal ore, you might ask? Shading and coloring. It just happens to be one of the best blocks for creating grayish color gradings for terrain, in my opinion at least. So I kind of found myself using it quite a lot, as some of you guys probably already noticed. Even when building certain buildings, it can come in quite handy. And after finally getting enough coal ore, we're going over to a little island close to our harbor city. Starting off by putting down a beacon and removing the trees on the island. I want to completely remove the island over here to connect the two oceans that we have on either side, to make it one basically. On the other hand, it will also give us quite some stone and resources that we can use for future builds. But for now, we don't need as much, so it's just another 20 minutes of mining here, I'd say, and then we should have enough. And that might do it already. Do you think that 6 shulkers full of stone should be fine if I'm not wrong? So we just quickly grab the shulkers and then we're good here. We can just leave the beacon, since at some point I get more stone from here, so it's alright. Back at home, we don't have to farm any other materials, since there's still quite some spread around the base. So quickly grabbing quite some of the deep slate and the moss and cobblestone to make mossy cobblestone. And after the crafting, there's just some stuff left, like smooth basalt and something here and there, like andesite and dirt basically. And after putting all the materials together, we have 18 shulkers full of materials for the island, which should be more than enough hopefully. So we'll quickly grab them and then head out to get some fresh air and build the terrain of today's island. Size-wise, it will probably be around the same as this island, and in terms of the shape, it would be like a half moon or a sea kind of. Like there's gonna be a little bay basically. But for now, enough yapping. It's finally time to build something and make this island come to life. Alright. We got the largest part of the terrain in. We just don't talk about the terrain underwater. We don't do that here. I mean, we will connect it later on with the ground while detailing, probably. We'll see. But before we do the fancy stuff underwater and all the detailing, we have to give this island a purpose. I mean, I can't just sit here around doing nothing, right? And this is where the Nether portal over here comes in. Since the portal over there leads to the Nether roof, where we have a little gold farm. So I can't just leave it there standing in the open. I mean, just doesn't work like that. So you guys guessed it right. The island we built is mainly for the Nether roof access and the Nether portal. Everything else is just fancy stuff that looks good. But since a portal in one episode isn't enough, we're also gonna build a little bartering farm. Simply because we'll need the resources that we'll gain from the farm for future builds, especially the blackstone. So we'll quickly grab enough netherrack for the spawning platform and all the redstone stuff over here so we can build the automated sorting system. Since I wanted to build the farm a while ago already, I do think we have all the redstone stuff crafted already. There's not much to do except for grabbing everything from the chest real quick. I mean, a simple bartering farm is literally just an item sorter, so it doesn't require as much resources and isn't complicated at all. Inside of a bartering farm, we kinda have to make an iron farm though at some point, because farming iron by hand is just pure pain, not gonna lie. It's taken way too long, especially when making other farms or for larger builds and detailing. The amount of iron needed to get all the lanterns and hoppers, but that's for another project. Finally in the Nether you can see the little gold farm we have over here, and I do think we're lucky enough that we're already in a Nether waste biome, which means we don't have to go find one and can build a bartering farm literally right next to our gold farm here. So I'd say we're gonna waste no time and put the item sorter down so we can get the farm running. Having the item sorter done, we're gonna get over here to build the spawning platform for the piglins. They only spawn on netherrack in the nether waste and crimson forest biome if I'm not wrong. So for now we're just quickly building a spawning platform that's hopefully large enough so we don't have to wait 2 hours for the piglins to spawn. And depending how many piglins you need, it can get quite annoying to be honest. But with the platform done, I realized we only have 6 name tags left, and since I want 20 piglins in the farm, I found myself trading here to get enough emeralds for the remaining tags. Now with all these emeralds, we should have enough to buy the remaining 13 name tags, I hope. Only to be one of short. No, of course. We really had to be one of short, huh? Anyway, quickly got the last name tag, and now we can get back to the Nether again. But before that, we'll quickly rename the name tags at our base, and with the last one done, it's time to get back to the Nether for a game of tag with the piglins, since they just always seem to run away. I mean, look at this one. Ah, okay, he's in, never mind. That's something at least. And this one follows as well. Okay, never mind. Like, he was literally right here. Anyway, it's gonna take a bit now. But after like 1.5 hours of just waiting for piglins to spawn, we finally have the last one. Now we just remove the netherrack and put some blocks above them. And then we should be pretty much good. Now we just need to get some gold from the gold farm, and then we can put it in the chest over here with the observer, and the piglins should start trading. Now we just leave them for a while, and then we should have the first few resources from this farm. So about 50 minutes later, it isn't looking too bad. We have quite a bit now, and with that, the farm part for this episode is done. Which means we just quickly put the shulkers over here to the portal, and then we can head back to our little island, on which we still have a lot to improve actually. Back in our starter area again, we can start with the second part of today's build. Since we don't just want the island to be completely empty, we're gonna tackle the build part next, like an actual building, or multiple, kind of. I mean, I'd consider them to be one single part, but you guys let me know. Since you guys already know that I'm obsessed with towers, we're not just gonna build one of them, but 3 today. Of which 2 will definitely be connected by a bridge, and maybe the third one as well. I don't know yet. We gotta see. So that's the plan for the moment, but of course there's also gonna be some additional stuff to the towers and the island. Because if not, it would be kinda boring and feel kinda lifeless, but that's for later, since right now we have to manage the resources for the next part of the build. And as we already know, there's a huge mess down here, and we have quite a shulker monster. But I think there's no big need to farm any more resources today, since for now it's just gonna be a lot of crafting and sorting. So that's something positive, I guess. But that also means that for the next about 2 hours probably, I have to slave away like this, so I hope you guys enjoyed a few, because there's nothing else to see right now. I'm being serious. This just went on for quite some time until I finally had all the cheers together, of course. But yeah, I'll spare you the details. Having all the shulkers filled up after multiple hours, we can finally grab them now though. And we're finally free. I think we have 24 shulkers in total, all filled to the last slot, so there's gonna be quite some stuff to build now. And we can leave the base after all the hours of torture. So, coming over to the island again, I don't want to have too much, so we're just gonna get straight to building and you guys see for yourself how it's gonna turn out. Now we're nowhere near done, don't get me wrong, but we finally have the 3 towers in place. And it's looking good so far, and having the towers in place means we can light up and connect the nether portal to the nether roof. Which is why we're gonna take a break from building for a minute and do exactly that. So we're quickly grabbing the cords and then we can light up the portal over here. And then we can go to the nether roof and just build a portal on the same exact cords divided by 8, and that's basically it. Now it should go exactly over here if I'm not wrong. So we'll just put the blocks down real quick, and yeah, I'm too lazy for that. Yeah, I do know that I would have been faster if I took another block, but I'm just stupid sometimes. Either way, we're done with this one now. And the portal connected, which means we finally have a proper portal to get to the nether roof. Now that's all for the nether stuff for today, and we can put our focus back to the building part, since there's still quite some stuff that we have to improve. I mean, the towers are mostly done, but almost the entire island needs an overhaul, so for now it's time to tackle all of that. Now, to make the island better step by step, I started off with adding a few pathways to access the different parts of the island. That also includes adding another wall to flatten up the terrain for the pathway over here, as well as a little bridge in this area. Aside of the pathways, the island terrain still had to be connected with the ocean ground. And when I tell you that it's one of my favorite activities in Minecraft, I also have to tell you that I'm quite a sarcastic person. So after the horrendous activity, I decided to make the shores more muddy and dirty, basically all around the island, to create more contrast and add more color overall. And at last it was time to add another kind of structure to the island. 2 little abandoned or broken docks on the north side of the island. Now, it doesn't just look nice here, but it also adds to the work building since this island group relies on fish as their main food source. So having a couple of docks here just makes sense, since the larger fishing and eventually trading boats or ships do have to dock somewhere around the islands. I mean, in some way they have to get their food, right? And with all of the little improvements that we just added, the rough design of the island is more or less done. I mean, the docks aren't looking too bad, there's some cargo and resources spread around, and if you come over here, there's shelter for a potential fisherman over here. So we might have to put a villager here at some point. But for now, I'd say we'll leave it empty. But maybe some copper golems could work as well. Now, while the exterior of the island is not done yet, the interior is pretty much good already, I'd say. All the 3 towers do have an interior with different functions, sort of. In this one we have a little boat storage at the bottom, since it's the closest to the bay. And there are definitely some repairs that have to be done on some boats every now and then. And above this floor we have some living quarters for the workers on the island. With not much, to be honest, since there's not too much space in the tower sadly, so interiors are a bit difficult. Now, if we go up another floor, you can see that I incorporated a little spiral staircase and left out quite some floors to create a better atmosphere and sense of scale for the tower. And I used the same concept for the other 2 towers as well, with just different storage and resources inside of them to give all of them a different purpose. For the third one over here, I created a little library instead of spamming bars all across basically. And yes, you can use the staircase, it's just a bit, I'd say, inconvenient. But yeah, if you come up to the top, you have 1 or even 2 more floors. In this case here, we have some more living quarters for commanders. And as you've already seen, the 2 taller towers are connected by this bridge here. Going back to this tower over here, we have a little blacksmith for them. To not just be able to repair their weapons, but of course also sharpen them again. And of course enough storage for armory and all of that. And at the very top we can find ourselves next to a little ripped apart flag, as another little detail that I thought was very fitting. Now last but not least we can't forget the communication room, which contains of a lot of bird cages for maybe ravens or falcons that send and bring back letter from and to the island. I mean, they didn't have any phones back then, and communication was, and probably still is, one of, if not the most important thing, especially when living on islands like these. Now with the little interior showcase done, there's just the exterior left, and there's still quite some to do, believe it or not. I mean, if you just look over there for a second, you can see there's quite some grass and more than literally 0 foliage on the island. So that's definitely one thing that we have to tackle. But before all that, I finally want to spawn-proof the entire island, since I can't stand the zombies and all the other mobs making sounds 24/7. Not even mentioning the creeper blowing holes in it. So for now it's time to put torches under quite some moss carpet and finally making the island safe. Which sadly takes quite some time, but after adding all the torches underground, there were only a couple of glow lichen left to place, and then the entire island should be completely spawn-proof by now, I think. I just hope I covered every single area, and if not, we'll find out soon enough, I guess. And with that finally done, it's time for the foliage part, and I gotta be honest, I'm kinda lazy with it, since I'm using mainly bone meal for the grass, instead of farming it manually. But with all this bone meal we should be fine, hopefully. Now we go to our little underground lab here to grab some firefly bushes and normal bushes, and once we have those now, I think we're pretty much set. Mainly because we still have quite some foliage blocks in our shulkers, though I'll be honest. But with everything together now, we can start making this island feel more alive, since without any grass or flowers and foliage, it just looks way too plain. The thing with bone meal is that you can overdo it easily, so I just removed what's too much in my opinion to not make it too crowded in flowers, grass and bushes. And once I'm done with bone mealing, I'm going back to adding another couple of plants and foliage like firefly bushes as well as the normal bushes, and of course some dead bushes eventually as well. Aside of that, we also can't forget about the seagrass underwater, which does a lot, but also keeps it quite simple. It's like not much to do. And in the end, I want to add a few vines here and there to make it a bit overgrown at least. Now with all the vines added and some more foliage like mushrooms and dripleaves in the water, of course, it's looking quite good and it seems like it's slowly coming to life. I mean, it doesn't look like a dead island anymore, which is quite positive, I'd say. Now, putting all of the detailing and terrain stuff aside, there's still one huge part missing, which is the shipwreck, as you guys guessed right. The place where we're gonna build the shipwreck will be over here, since it's perfectly fitting in the rule of thirds from this angle over here, and it puts more weight and interest on the left side. To put it into simple words, we have a lot on the right side already, and the left here was quite empty, so it's quite literally the perfect spot for us. Now, in order to build the shipwreck, we'll quickly grab the last few shulkers, and then we're ready to put it into place, I say. Now, we just get back over here, and then it's finally time, after all we did today, for the shipwreck. So enough yapping for now, and you guys see for yourself. Now we do have it finally in our world. The shipwreck is done, as well as the island, at least for now I say. And if we get over here, you can see that there's a lot going on the shipwreck. Overall, I tried to make it quite damaged, but not completely destroyed, so there's still signs of life going on, such as the cargo and beds over here, for example. So the main shape of the ship is still there. I just only cut it in half. I put some holes in here and there and just make it look destroyed a bit. Now, if you come over here, you can see that I put the ship parts at quite an angle, so I obviously couldn't make it as detailed on the scale as I wish I could have. And I'll be honest, I did use XM to rotate a normal ship that I've designed to this angle for the right shape. And then I fixed up everything and changed the color palette and a bit more. Now, I also added a few rudder boats to the area as a little detail, and I would say with all of that together, it turned out pretty nice. And lore-wise, the ship was anchoring in the open until quite a heavy storm made the anchor snap, and the ship shattered at some rocks over there. Now, the last thing I want to add, you guessed it right, are a few copper golems to actually add a living being on the island. So that's 1, 2, 3, and finally 4. Now that should be good enough, hopefully. And with the last touch finally added, we can leave this island alone for now and go over to add the final few islands around the starter base area. Just for the little extra touch. And after that, we're definitely needing a break from building islands. Which is why we're gonna build an entire city district in today's video. And for that, we're gonna leave the islands over here for a while and move over to our lovely city. I mean, at least a couple of houses that we've built already. But yeah, while the islands are definitely becoming a strong suit of mine, I definitely do lack in other areas, especially designing and building a city, as you can see. I mean, it looks not too bad, but it's not where I want it to be. Which is why I don't just want to build an entire city district, but I also want to learn and create a more developed style for it, with quite some lovely features, of course. So today will not just be about building what we already can, but learning how to build all over again, basically. And with that being said, I don't want to delay anything, so it's time for the first step of today, which is making space for the upcoming city district. So after grabbing the tools, it's time for not too much digging actually. Since I've decided to build the city district over here in this area next to our already existing buildings, which means that we don't have to remove much actually. So an hour later, we're already pretty much done with most of the digging, I'd say. I mean, we should have enough space for later, I think. Depending on the size of the district, of course, but the plan for today is an entire district, so it probably won't be too huge because I want to get it done in today's episode. And on the other hand, I have some things in mind already for the style of the buildings, so they should actually fit inside of here without a doubt. Mainly because instead of single huge buildings that take up a lot of space on the ground, I want to build smaller buildings but stack them higher and higher on top of each other, which is usually seen in cyberpunk builds in cities which are designed quite cramped with a lot of narrow side streets and buildings, because there are so many people living there, and the more people, the more housing is needed, and everything becomes more crowded and narrow. So yeah, you guessed it right, the more buildings, the more resources we need to build them. So before we get the chance to build anything, it's sadly time for getting all the resources together quickly. And since we're broke on a lot of resources, that means going on a little farming trip to get all of the remaining things that we need. So time to grab a beacon, and then we head straight to the tough mines, that are also known as trial chambers, which is useful because that also gives us the copper we need. And there's not just the tough blocks from the trial chamber, but also the natural spawning veins, which give us so much tough that it will definitely be enough for a good while. And since I also run out of stone and wood all the time, I went ahead and took care of that as well. And when I say wood, then literally every single wood type that we'll need today. So that means aside of jungle wood, it's spruce wood, then acacia wood, even mangrove. And I kid you not, it's definitely a pain to gather this one. Then birch wood, as well as oak and dark oak wood, which we luckily still had a lot of. So there was no need to gather those two, and with all the materials together, there was nothing really missing at the moment, and the crafting can finally start. I kid you not though, I believe crafting the materials together took longer than the actual farming part today. But after going back and forth to our starter base to get the missing things and craft everything, we're finally done. And we got everything we need except for one thing. Because we sort of have a little situation with our storage, since almost all the shulkers are in use, so a little trip to the end it is. But we won't spend too much time there, because I just want enough shulkers to not have to sort all the materials all the time while building, so half an hour will do. So after a little trip, we almost have 3 stacks of shells, and that will give us enough shulkers for a while, let's say. And we shouldn't have any problems with our storage anymore. I mean, at least I hope so. They should all fit into our inventory, no? Oh, okay, never mind, we have no space left. I guess that had to happen, right? I mean, it was quite obvious. Anyway, we're fixing that real quick, and then we have to go over to remove the beacon that we have over here, because it's kind of in the way. And then we gotta replace it again a bit further away, I'd say. Now this one just has to go real quick, and then we should have nothing left to do, and we can hop straight into building, I'd say. Now that is not all of it, of course, don't worry. I've just begun to lay out the pathways and streets mainly, together with some outlines of where the building blocks will go. Overall, while designing this district, I'm trying to incorporate different levels of elevation, to have a bunch of variety in height basically. Aside of laying down the outlines and pathways inside the district, I've also put down a part of another main road behind over here. I feel like the pathways not being flat already add quite a bit to the elevation part and make it feel a bit more organic. But the main way of creating a variety in elevation that I want to use, as already mentioned, is not filling the ground with huge buildings that take up a lot of space, but rather have building blocks, like multiple smaller buildings put together, that will be stacked onto each other higher and higher to make it feel more crowded. To create even more interest higher up, I will probably use bridges to connect said buildings and create more interesting shapes, together with staircases eventually and platforms to have more floors on different levels, so we won't just be walking on the streets and pathways, but also on the buildings, sort of. Now at the moment it's still a little mess of outlines and pathways, but we're gonna change that in just a second, because I want to start tackling the first few little building blocks one by one to give you guys a better example of what I mean. So I'd say we're gonna hop back into building and I'll hear you in a bit. that's more or less what I want to go for with the multiple buildings in one block. Somewhat stacked onto each other, going higher and higher basically to create the different elevations as said. Together with all the windows, balconies and roofs on different heights, as well as certain walls being offset by one block to separate the different buildings more and create those different heights. Doing that will not just make the buildings look and feel less flat, but also won't create as many large flat walls on which we'll have to spam details and stuff later on. So it's a win-win kinda. And with the first of the 2 building blocks put in place, and you guys finally have an idea of what I'm trying to go for, I'd say we can put another few of them down and fill out the district step by step. So I'd say it's time to go back to building for a bit. Step by step, it's actually coming together now, and with every single building it feels more like a city in my opinion. And since there's only 2 more building blocks left over, I'd say we're gonna tackle them real quick, and then we're pretty much done with the rough design of the district. So it's building time again, and I'll hear you after the last few buildings are in place. Now with the last 2 building blocks finally in place, it doesn't look too bad now, does it? I mean, it's still a bit bland because we didn't do the detailing yet and we just put in the buildings, but I do like the structuring of the entire district. And we kinda accomplished that cramped feeling that I wanted to create. Now without the detailing, there genuinely is not enough going on yet. But once it is in place, there will be quite some to look at and will hopefully feel a bit more alive. But I already do like the feeling we get when walking through the narrow streets. Oh yo, what? Okay, never mind, we haven't seen anything. I guess we'll have to do some approving. That lovely interaction aside though, I do think the last 2 building blocks have turned out rather good. And might actually consist of some of my favorite buildings of today. I mean, I'll have to see once all the detailing is in place, but for now they are quite good, I'd say. Now we are able to access most of the roofs without any additional detailing tweaks, but there's still a few that we'll have to make procurable. For the people that don't know, I still want to carry out my initial plan of making the entire district as well as the entire future city procurable, based on the concept and mechanics of Assassin's Creed. No, not just to hop on the roofs and be a bit silly and goofy, but in general to create more possible interactions with the city and buildings and have a reason to come here and have something to do. And some things to explore, at least more or less, just like they're doing it. I mean, exploring the basement, you know? Jokes aside though, the entire idea to have smaller buildings crammed together, stacking higher and higher on top of each other, comes back to one entire thing, making the city feel overwhelming and having tons of corners to explore. And we won't stop at the current level of elevation that we have over there, since the plan is to go even higher the closer we get to the center of the city, while at the same time creating contrast with larger and more open buildings that kind of break up all the smaller ones and give a sense of scale and immersiveness. But all that aside, I feel like I can't get around mob proving, so we gotta do that real quick and make our little district at least somewhat safe. I mean, there's way too many mobs down here, so it has to be done. I'll be using frog lights for the underground and torches probably for inside the houses, I'd say, to reduce some lag at least. Since spamming a million torches might just drop my FPS to 0. I mean, who would have guessed? But with all of that done and all those frog lights and torches in place, we're more or less safe now, I'd say. And to reduce more lag, we do have to fix all the signs we've placed at some point, but we're just gonna do that after the detailing so we don't have to do it twice. So that's for later. Talking about detailing though, we totally do have quite some ahead of us, since the streets don't really feel alive yet now, do they? They don't really. They pretty much feel as lifeless as a corpse, so there's literally no signs of life, and we totally do have to change that. Now I do want to start with the exterior, even though the interior would have influence on the exterior. Sort of, if we're talking about professions and stuff, but interiors just take way too long and I don't really want to do them right now, to be honest, so exteriors it is. And I mean, once we get to the interiors, we can just adjust the exterior a bit. I mean, it will be a bit more work eventually, but I'm more comfortable with starting the exterior now, so we'll do that. Which means I'll be slaving away for the next hour sorting and putting all the materials together. But hey, with that done, there's nothing in the way anymore. I mean, it wasn't too bad since it didn't take as long this time, which is quite nice. And with that done, we can finally go over to the detailing, for which I actually already have some things in mind. I kinda wanna start off in this area over here, since I thought it would fit quite well to have some foliage close to the bridge and the river, of course. And don't worry, we won't make everything overgrown, and I don't plan on overdoing it this time, but I can't promise anything. So I started off with a basic wood trellis until one of you guys had an idea for a willow tree hanging over the water, which I decided to incorporate over here above this little building. But since I've never built one before, it sort of turned out a bit wonky, and it's probably not too accurate, but it looks quite nice in my opinion, so for the first time it's not too bad. And it just adds so much to the atmosphere. I mean, willow trees just feel sort of magical. I don't know. It's just green. Green does wonders, not gonna lie. Foliage aside though, the streets are still very empty, which is why I wanna fill them with some carts to bring in some movement and sense of life, basically. Anything that moves or symbolizes movement just makes it feel more alive. I mean, if you move, you're pretty much alive, but if you don't, chances are quite high that you're dead. With the cards in place, there is one other thing that moves though, which is the boats. So we gotta add a few of them over here at the river real quick, because without them, it's just way too empty. And right after that, we went back to mob proving, also known as putting down streetlights into the city and adding light to it. I mean, when we run through these streets, there's gotta be some light, right? And after adding the streetlights, I went back to our little corner over here where we started all of this and decided to add detailing building by building, kind of. Which sadly also includes redoing some walls because they didn't fit as well. Having the first bit of the detailing in place though, it does look a lot better already. And I really do love these drying lines, so be prepared for them to be everywhere, in different variations of course. It's just a great detail above our heads that somewhat forces us to look up, which brings us back to the elevation topic that we already talked about. The detailing really creates such a difference, especially the foliage and the drying lines just make it so much better. But yeah, obviously there's still quite some to do, so no breaks, straight back to building and changing basically half of the existing ground that we have for the streets to create more variety and pipes to catch rainwater basically. At least the stairs are supposed to symbolize that. since there's nothing else really that works in this scale, I'd say. But I feel like it somewhat works. I mean, it's just supposed to hint on it, and yeah, we haven't done the ground over here yet, but we will eventually. Now, another thing that I desperately want to change is the tower over here, since it just doesn't work. So I'm sorry to every one of you guys that were there at the stream, but I just can't make it work. So it has to go. After that, I also decided to upgrade the little spring in the backyard with more candles and soul sand for the particles. And it might not be perfect, but it's definitely better than before, so I'm okay with it. Having a look from the roofs real quick, you can see that it's slowly coming to life, but there's still quite some areas which are definitely lacking. I haven't touched these little side streets here at all, but we'll get to it now. Having all the detailing in place now, it's so much better. But I did try to not make it too colorful, or at least bright. So it should feel alive, but also like a regular area and nothing too fancy basically. And I gotta say, the graffiti is probably one of my favorite little details in the district. It just adds so much more character to it, and it just kind of feels unique in a way. And the same goes for the stairs that act as a hint to the water pipes, or the pipes that catch the rainwater, which are sort of meant to transport the water towards the sewer systems or the canals or the river. So yeah, we should have about 80% of the detailing in place already, and we're able to access every building. But yeah, there's no interiors yet. We haven't seen anything. On the other hand, we're also able to access almost every single roof, I think, and it's pretty much procurable already. The remaining 20% of the detailing, though, as well as making things procurable, will be added once we have the surrounding districts in place, as well as the interiors for this one, so we can connect everything with one another. But I gotta say, the drying lines, or the flags that we have over here, just add so much to the vibes, and are, after this little corner over here with the graffiti, probably my favorite detail in the district. And I forgot this block over here. Never mind, gotta change that real quick. And now it's my favorite spots again. And now we're finally done. We're getting all of these details in place. It definitely took a while, but I do think it was totally worth it. But you guys let me know what you think so far of the district and all the detailing, and what kind of little details we could add next time. And while it's not the perfect district or a city, I do think it turned out quite great. And I mean, losing greatness in pursuit of perfection is a curse we often give ourselves, so it doesn't have to be perfect yet. I mean, we'll still improve our city style with time, definitely, but there's no need to force it too much. But I will have to force myself waxing the signs real quick, because I don't want to have 0 FPS at some point in the city, so it quite literally has to be done. About half an hour later now, I should have all of the signs waxed by now. I mean, maybe 99% because I missed 1 or 2, but you know, the lag is a lot less already, so I mean, I can't complain. So it's pretty much alright, and we still have some honeycomb over, so we're all good. And if I'm not wrong, that actually was the last thing that we had to do for today. As said, it's not 100% finished, but we'll develop it further with the future city parts that we'll build. But for now, I'd say it turned out quite well. And with that, what are you doing here? Huh? What do you want from me? The doors? The interiors? Nah, no. Guys, we haven't seen anything. No, we haven't seen anything, trust. I mean, interiors, who needs interiors, right? But yeah, anyway, creating your dream world takes ages. I mean, you can't tell me I'm the only one that feels like this. I started this world almost 5 months ago, and I've been playing on this world for over 1500 days now. But I still feel like I'm just starting out and we're just at the beginning. Having built a couple of things in the past few months, there's still a lot missing in this world to make the vision that I have for this world actually come to life. I mean, having all these islands over here is quite a good start to my own little fantasy world, but there's one massive key factor missing that will totally transform the entirety of any world, even yours. Depending on the title, you've probably already guessed it, but the main key factor that will totally transform any world is terrain. Not just any terrain, but terrain that you specifically build for your world theme. I mean, whether we get ourselves some fictional or non-fictional inspiration, looking at any world, the terrain shapes its character the most. While it's not just setting the mood and atmosphere for a world, it's essential for good world building, since it answers multiple questions at once. For example, where do resources actually come from? Why would people settle down here? What kind of life can exist in these places? And what is this world actually supposed to feel like? So terrain does a lot, which is why today we're finally starting to terraform at least a part of this world. I mean, we can't do everything in one episode, so we'll have to start somewhere. And with somewhere, I mean a place a little bit further north from our city over here, which at the moment, as you can see, is covered by a lot of trees. And changing that will take quite some time, considering the size of the area that I want to terraform today. I mean, you can't even see the entire forest and area from up here, so it will take ages probably. But removing all the trees is a necessary step, sadly, since we won't just build over them and put down some mountains. But we'll create some sort of fantasy terrain. And since I'm not a madman, I'll go grab a beacon real quick, in case if we have to remove some existing terrain and stone. And of course the trees. I mean, it might not do much, but I just want to be on the safe side. And we're sadly out of ores, so we gotta go to our gold farm to farm some gold blocks real quick, because we're quite poor lately. I mean, it's looking this bad, so just give me a couple of minutes. And if I'm not wrong, we should have enough gold and gold ingots now, right? I mean, we need 2 stacks and 36 blocks. So it's finally time to go back and get to work now. I mean, the trees won't be removed by themselves, right? So I really don't want to waste any more time. So it's time to stop procrastinating, put down a beacon, and then we can finally start cutting down some trees. I mean, preparing the canvas is important. What can I say? I gotta be honest though, cutting down trees for hours on end is torture, so I got myself some help here. I mean, it's always more fun with friends, right? And it's totally consensual. I mean, he was eager to help. So after another couple of hours and my friend dipping at some point, the trees are finally gone, and I gotta be honest, I'm a bit scared of the amount of wildflowers and leaf litter here. But hey, we won't have to cut down any more trees for a while, hopefully. I think. I mean, I might be wrong, since we might need acacia wood for the terrain, but we will have a lot of birch oak and dark oak wood for now. But that's at least something, right? And we did all that only for the next step that we'll have to take in order to prepare the area here to be flattening almost the entire terrain over here. So there will be a bunch of digging and a lot more torture. But before that, we'll take a break from breaking blocks and head out to the end, since we completely run out of shulkers, and I mean, considering the amount of blocks that we'll have to remove is probably over 300,000, we'll definitely need a bunch of shulkers. So I hope you guys enjoy me slaying shulkers, because there's no way around it. And no, we won't build a shulker farm, okay? We won't. I'm too lazy for that. And I mean, I feel like six stacks of shulkers should be enough for now, so we're pretty set. And now you guys can already imagine what's coming next. I mean, right after crafting all the shulkers, my bad, which might actually will take a while. I mean, just look at that. But with the last few crafted, we should be pretty much set for quite a ton of resources. So, you know, it's time for the digging. So wish me luck, guys, because I'll definitely need it. I'll hit you up once we're done. We? Did he say we? Yes, I did, because this entire digging part took over 15 hours. So I did get myself some help from my friends Moro, Milk, and Chumbo. So shout out to them. Helped a lot. Thank you guys. And yes, even with their help, it took over 15 hours. So it was a bunch of fun. With all the digging coming to an end now and about 350 to 400,000 blocks removed, we can finally remove the beacons now, since we should have all the space that we need now to create our own terrain. So after putting the beacons away real quick, you can see that we cleared quite some space. I mean, it's so much that I can't even show it in one shot, so it is quite a lot. But with all those blocks removed, we do have a lot of the resources that we need to gather already. At least all the grass blocks, stone, and coal ore, for example. But of course, there's still a couple of materials that we need, which we sadly don't have in the storage mess over here yet. So it's time to change that. Gonna grab a couple of shulkers to get the last few materials that we need, and then we head out to go to our moss and pale moss farm, since we need a couple thousands of each. I think 10 shulkers full of moss and about 5 full of pale moss should be enough though. So we'll turn the farms on real quick, and then I'll hear you once we have all the moss together, which indeed did take a good while. But with all the moss together, we can go over to our starter base now to get quite a bunch of resources that we still have left over. To be a bit more specific, we'll get some tough, deep slate, and cyan terracotta from here, as well as some other stuff. But I do actually think that we don't have enough terracotta anymore, so we will probably have to go on a little farming trip, which is exactly what we're gonna do now, since we do have all the materials that we need from here. So there's literally nothing left except for going on the farming trip and crafting a couple of materials together, obviously, until we can finally start building the terrain. So without further ado, it's farming time. With the farming finally done and the last needed resources in our inventory, we won't have to keep digging for a good while, I hope, since we can finally start with building at least a good bit of the terrain. I mean, we got 2 double chests full of shulkers, which are, again, full of materials, so I'd say we won't waste any time and put them actually to use. So we're gonna take the river that we digged over here and make it flow through a mountain or some sort of rock formation, which means that we'll have rocks over the river, which form some sort of overhang. And to put it into simple words, we're basically just gonna put a hole into the mountain so that the river can flow through the mountain. And in addition to that, we'll have quite a bunch of rocks here and there, as well as cliffs, basically around the entire river. But there was definitely enough yapping for now, so you guys just see for yourself, and I'll hear you in a bit. Now, it's been quite some time, but we finally have the rather rough part of the terrain in place now. And I'd say it's been pretty much worth it, as you can see. And you guys are hopefully finally able to understand, at least more or less, where we're going with this. Having the rock formation towering above the little river over here just creates such a nice atmosphere, and it actually really turned out quite well. I mean, just take a breath for a second and look at it. Being able to ride a boat through the river and you just look up and see the rocks just creates such an immersive feeling, in my opinion. But of course, there's still a couple of things to do, as you've noticed. For one, we have to make the river and surrounding areas in the water a little bit deeper. At least a tiny bit, because right now it is quite flat, as you can tell. And for two, if you've noticed, I've chosen quite a wonky shaping for the rock formation, which has multiple reasons, to be honest. One, to give it a unique shape that will be remembered easily. And for two, I've had the idea to add floating rocks or levitating rocks around the top, which does not just add more interest, but it also gives us the perfect canvas for more lore around this area. I mean, maybe there's magic in the game, or some sort of weird gravity field, but we'll get back to that later. For now, if you guys want to take something away from this, then it is give your terrain characteristics and make it memorable. And not necessarily by looks, but by how it makes you feel, because most of the time people remember things for how they make them feel and not for how they actually look like or how they actually wear or whatsoever. All the yapping aside though, we're gonna see how we're actually continuing this, because at the moment it is still quite bland. I mean, there's no foliage at all yet, and it just isn't alive at all. I mean, there's not really anything that indicates life, so we will definitely have to change that. And since we barely have any farms for foliage, this is the perfect excuse to add a couple of farms in today's video. So I'm currently thinking about transforming this little area over here and adding a tiny bit of life by adding a couple of ruins with the farms in them. Now hear me out. I know we're building a bunch of ruins, and it's basically the only thing I'm building every now and then, but it does make sense. I promise I'm not just spamming them for no reason at all. Because, listen, by adding some sort of abandoned village or just something in that direction, we're not just able to add some farms for all the foliage today, but we'll also be able to add quite some lore. I mean, just think about it. The buildings could have been burnt down by some dragon that will add at some point, which indicates that the lands further north in our world are more dangerous and people are not really able to live in them due to creatures such as the mentioned dragon, as well as the weird gravity field in this area that makes rocks or certain minerals float, for example. So basically, the entire lands further north are kind of crazy, to say the least. So I'd say that's the perfect excuse to add a couple of ruins and change this part of the terrain in this area a bit more to give more personality, as well as a tiny bit of life and story to the area, basically. Enough yapping though, it's time to put the farms where they belong, so I would say we'll grab the resources real quick and then we get straight to transforming the area over here that I mentioned. I think I want to start off by altering the terrain over here by adding more rocks or boulders, kind of, to sort of stylize the terrain a bit more and basically close in the area where we're gonna put in the ruins. And then I just went ahead and put in the first little abandoned building, which will basically be the first placeholder for one of our farms, the semi-automatic grass farm that we need. Aside of adding another few rocks and ruins, I've also decided to add the first few trees in this area. And of course, one farm isn't enough, so I've added a little nether sprouts farm as well. And since we didn't have a dry grass farm yet, I've improvised a little farm for those too. And last but not least, I've decided to add a fern farm from Raceworks, which you can find in the description below. After that, it was just adding a few more things here and there, like more ruins, rocks, trees, and a pathway, as well as a little spring. And with all that in place, we have most of it done, except for all the missing foliage at least. But hey, at least the farms will give us all the resource for later that we need. Considering that we'll keep it quite simple, with short grass, nether sprouts aside as some bushes and fern probably. And maybe some like leaf stuff. And probably not too many flowers. I honestly really like though how this place turned out with all the little burnt down buildings and the rocks surrounding them. It does kind of make it feel cozy, and once all the foliage is in place, it will look even better. I mean, it's genuinely insane considering the impact just some short grass can have on the entire terrain. Like, you don't even have to overcomplicate it. Just some short grass makes it look a lot more organic and just creates this fluffy effect kind of. And it just makes the terrain look way less bland. So, since we do have the farms now, I'd say we will have to put them to use. I mean, what other way do we have to get hundreds of stacks of short grass? Manually farm it? I mean, I'm crazy, but I'm not a madman. Either way, it's time to slave away. So we'll quickly get all the bone meal we need from our mob farm. And then let's say I can sit here for a couple of hours right after filling up all the farms with the bone meal. And after that, the next 2 hours pretty much just looked like this. So yeah, there wasn't really much going on. Thankfully though, there aren't too many different blocks and resources needed to make a plant terrain feel somewhat alive at least. I mean, often it's just a lot of short grass, a couple of flower fields and bushes, and that's basically enough. So after another hour and having farmed thousands of grass, fern and bushes as well from our bush farm, we should have everything together now, since we did have most of the items left over that we don't need a huge amount of. So having all the items together now, there's nothing in our way anymore to make this terrain come to life. First off, I do want to deepen our river though, which we need a beacon for real quick, because we really can't leave the river like this. I mean, it's way too flat and it just looks ugly. So we'll get the beacon real quick, put it in place and set it up. And then it's already time to start digging, but don't worry, we won't have to dig as much this time, since for now I just want to be able to look at the river without any shame. So the next 2 hours was basically just digging and cleaning up our little river. With that out of the way now, it does look a lot better in my opinion. The depth just makes such a difference that even though we do have to dig a lot, it still is worth it. I guess sometimes the annoying things are just exactly what we have to do. With the little digging part done, we can move on to the next little task now. Since we'll just keep the area over there for another video. It would be a little bit too much to do the terrain parts over there today. I mean, all the digging and shaping that terrain would take too much time. So we'll stick to our current terrain part, for which we'll have to add the floating rocks now that I was talking about earlier. So by quickly adding them, you can tell they really just do so damn much. Not just by adding more interest, but by creating negative space as well. Because negative space is very important if you want to create a unique or interesting silhouette or shape. Having a look from further away, I really like how it turned out. Sometimes with terrain you don't actually need to do as much to go from bad to good. Just all in the small little details and ideas that you put into place and that you actually pull through. Well, all the foliage is still missing though, and we can't really get around it, so let's say we'll go ahead and put all the grass and bushes into place now. Having a little part done by now, you can see that just a bit of grass and rocks can change so damn much. Sometimes it's just properly putting in the basics. That being said, I gotta put in the rest of the foliage. With the foliage in place now, it isn't looking too bad at all. The impact just a bit of grass and foliage can have is insane. And I mean, compared to before, it's definitely at least 10 times better now. The foliage really adds so much to the atmosphere, and we finally do get the fantasy landscape vibes that I was going for. And we just had to use a couple of nether sprouts here, some bushes, ferns, and a ton of short grass. So considering the small amount of effort put into the terrain, I'd say it has definitely been worth it. Since the impact of the terrain on the world is just so huge, especially in terms of world building, because terrain and landscapes create perspective and a solid foundation for the lore of your world. And together with the little details such as the floating rocks or the abandoned village over here that was burned down by a dragon, we're already starting to tell stories. With the foliage in place, we're kind of done with the first version of this area though, so it's time to grab all that and put it away for now. I just gotta say that with the foliage, the little village just looks so much better now. It's literally insane. Quickly removing the shulker, and then it should be pretty much all good over here. Except for this area. Never mind. Forget the foliage in this place. So we'll quickly grab some grass and fix it real quick. Having that done, I really do hope I haven't forgotten anything, but it does look like I haven't, so I mean we can maybe put a fucking quill in this lectern at some point, but hey, that's probably for next time. Because for now, I'm pretty much happy with how the terrain turned out so far. And yeah, for now we're pretty much done with this area at least. As I'm building, I often find myself wanting to do better and better each time in an endless loop of trying to reach perfection. And living in a digital age, seeing people create the crazy things, building better and better, outdoing each other and just building things I would have never thought of, doesn't really help with that. I do quite often find myself comparing my builds or videos or both and just don't really think that they're that good. So with every build and video, I've tried to do better, bigger, more detailed, better pacing, chasing textbook-like execution. Perfection in a way. Sometimes to an extent where it wasn't even fun anymore and it just felt like a chore to do. And that's not right, because building is supposed to be fun. And with that being said, we're gonna take a step back and scale things down. For a bit at least. Having built a huge part of the terrain here that you can see in the last episode, there's still a bunch missing, which is why we're gonna stay in this area for a bit and take on another chunk of terrain that has to be built in today's episode. All that being said, I do want to start splitting projects into multiple episodes or doing smaller projects from now on to upload and build more consistently. Since larger projects and videos sort of pressure you to do exactly what I just talked about for the last minute, which kind of results in even less uploads, because it sort of leads to a bunch of procrastination and it delays building and the build process by a bunch. So considering all that, we're gonna tackle this little area over here for now, for which I have some sort of plan already. Since we're connecting that area to the already existing terrain, we're gonna be building in the same terrain style, which means we'll be using the same blocks. Having said resources left over from our last little terrain adventure, we luckily won't really have to farm any more resources. And worst case scenario, we'll just ask that guy over there. Sadly, that doesn't save us from all the digging though, so we will have to set up a beacon real quick and remove the unnecessary terrain parts over there, because they seem to be a tiny bit in the way. So we'll grab the beacon real quick, set it up, and then we can get straight to digging and clearing out the area. Luckily, it shouldn't take as long as it did last time, I hope. Wish me luck. I need it. And with the shulker set up, it's time to start digging. Now, having all the terrain that was in the way removed, yes, the two little island thingies are supposed to stay for now. We sadly have to remove the beacon real quick before talking about our glorious terrain plans. And of course also pick up all the old blocks in the area, and while we're at it we can also really quick fix up the water over here. Then we should be fine. Except for fixing up the entire area here with water, which I forgot. But while we're at it we can just do that real quick. And with that done, it does look a lot better already. With all that out of the way now, it's finally time to talk about the plan. As already mentioned, keeping the two little islands here was intentional, since the rough idea for this area is to keep those two little islands while creating a ring of terrain surrounding them, creating another point of interest in this area that draws your eyes to it. And the two little islands, they'll be accessible by two little hanging bridges connecting them to the terrain ring, which again will also be connected by another potential hanging bridge eventually to the mainland. And aside of all that, there used to be an idea of a world tree in the middle of that little island that's gonna be surrounded by the terrain ring, which will come up in one of my live streams a while ago, which would just be way too much to be honest. So we're gonna stick to the small island in the middle, and instead of a world tree, we're gonna build a normal medium-sized oak tree maybe, which would fit better in this area by not taking away all the interest from the surroundings, but it also just makes more sense to build a world tree elsewhere. When we're gonna do that, you're asking? I've got no clue, but we'll get there eventually, just not today. I mean, we've talked about it. We're gonna do smaller stuff for now. With all that said, I do want to start building now, so I'd say we'll grab the materials real quick, and on the way also grab the Lily of the Valleys here real quick, because they're somewhat rare and we barely have any. And after that we can start building in a minute. And as you can see, we still have over one entire chest full of shulkers, which are full of materials again. So we didn't run out yet, so we'll just grab all the shulkers real quick, and then we can just instantly start building and putting down some of the terrain. So without wasting any more time, let's get started. With the two little islands, or the island and the rock in place, as well as the outlines of the terrain ring, you might get my idea for this area a bit better now. Size-wise, I would have preferred to make the rock a bit smaller, but creating good-looking hanging bridges with big height difference between their start and their end is quite a challenge, to be honest. So I sort of had to make the rock a bit bigger, but I feel like it still somewhat works at least. Especially together with the terrain ring on the outside, which when I look at the blueprint turned out bigger than expected, to be honest. But it's gonna be amazing, I'm quite sure. Enough yapping though, we still have to build a tiny bit more. A couple hours later, you can see that we finally have the terrain ring in place now. And it's actually starting to look like something. And I feel like it does connect quite well to the already existing terrain. And while there's no detailing yet, it's still looking somewhat decent, at least in my opinion. And if you look at it from above, you can clearly see that it's coming along just as planned. We do have the island in the middle with the ring around. And we just don't talk about all the missing stuff at the moment, that's for later. In terms of the texturing and gradient, I've used the same color palette as before, going from darker to lighter tones with basalt, deep slate, cyan terracotta, tuff, pale moss, coal ore, and for the light gray tones, mainly just stone and a bunch of andesite. Maybe a little too much now that I look at it. But yeah, while texturing, I just took the shadows and sunlight in consideration, so where the sunlight gets to, it's brighter, and where there's shadow, it's darker. Simple math basically. And overall, I just tried to make it not too dark and keep the stone-ish light grey look. Coming up here again, you always see one big problem that we haven't gotten rid of yet. We won't get around it. It will be time for another round of digging and building a simple underwater terrain. Well, basically just fixing it real quick, but it's still gonna be a bunch. But don't worry, we will only do the inside of the terrain ring today, so we'll basically break it down into manageable parts, which means that we can do the other parts later, spread across episodes or eventually live streams. Which you guys, when trying to learn how to build better, or basically in any field of life, could probably do too, considering we're all comparing ourselves to people with way more experience than us. It's pretty easy to lose yourself in things that are way too far ahead, and you just lose sight of what's right in front of you. Which in my case is doing the underwater terrain for just this area. So next time we're trying to take 5 steps at a time, handling multiple things at once, it might just be time to take a step back, breathe, and focus on the step right ahead of you. And with all that being said, it is time for another round of digging. So with the beacon set up, we'll get straight to it. And that's all the digging done for this episode at least. Can't wait for the next one. But that aside, you can definitely see a huge improvement compared to before without the mud and the depth added to the underwater parts. Having this little task done now leads us to the next one, which is the foliage and detailing, because if we're being honest, it does still look quite dead around here. So we definitely have to change that with a bunch of seagrass. Also known as, we'll go get some bone meal real quick and spam it underwater for a minute or two. I mean, if it works, it works. And aside of the seagrass, we'll of course also have to do the parts above the water and add a ton of grass, bushes, and a tiny bit of everything. Pretty much just the same foliage as we've used the last time. I mean, it's still the same biome and terrain style, so it does make sense. So we'll quickly grab enough bones for bone meal from our gigantic tower slash mob farm slash monument, and then head back and get straight to adding our foliage underwater as well as above water. But yeah, for now it's just spamming a bit of bone meal, and later on we can maybe add some kelp as well. 3 minutes later, looking from above, it isn't too much, but it definitely adds to it and makes it feel a bit less flat. Generally, for a lot of things, you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel to make it look good, or at least somewhat decent. So we'll leave the underwater part as it is for now, and head over to the foliage above the ground, since there's still quite some to do. So quickly grabbing all the resources, we'll get straight back to it. And that is all the simple foliage and rocks and all that kind of detailing in place. Well, it's not too much, it pretty much does the job. As said, you don't need something crazy every single time. You sort of want to create a balance between detail and no detail, to not have a complete cluttered mess. Aside of the foliage and detailing, we do still have the mob brewing left though, which we'll pick up in a second. And after that, we can head over to the hanging bridges that are still missing, as well as the tree in the middle of the island. I'm quite sure that I just want to go for a little oak tree, to be honest. Keeping it simple, and the same thing with the hanging bridges actually. There's no need for something too crazy, since this area is supposed to be a calmer spot. Some kind of place to go to when you just want to relax and maybe fish a little. Actually might make sense. We could technically build some kind of little fishing area at the end eventually, because right now we do still have to worry about 1, the mob brewing, 2, the bridges, and last but not least, the oak tree. So it's time to quickly go ahead and make sure that at least during the day there's no mob spawning around or below here. And the same thing goes for this dark little area in the whole of the terrain over here. It's definitely not supposed to be a home for creeper, so we're gonna fix this real quick. And with all of the underground lit up, we should be fine, hopefully. I mean, we'll know once we get blown up by a creeper. Next on the agenda is the hanging bridge from our previous terrain to our current one, for which we probably have to remove a bit of the rocks over here on this side, because I'm not exactly sure where we're gonna put the ends of the hanging bridge, but we will have to change a bit of the terrain as said. There's probably no way around it. And that's bridge number 1. As you can see, I'm trying to go for a more improvised look with the ropes and signs attached to make it seem a bit more stable, but still very wonky and is a tiny bit dangerous. Overall, I just felt like a rather thin hanging bridge does way better in this more rural area. There's no people living on the terrain we've built today, so it doesn't really have to be accessible safely, right? And as you've seen, I just connected it to the already existing pathway on the mainland with a tiny way. Either way, there's still 2 bridges left, which we're getting to now. I mean, I can't just talk about 3 bridges and only build 1. Doesn't really work like that now, does it? So we're just adding the last 2 bridges over here, connecting the terrain ring to the middle island, keeping it in the same style as the one we've just built. Having those 2 bridges in place, we can finally access the middle island, somewhat safely at least, and we don't have to use our elytra anymore. Having the bridges in place now, they actually feel just about right in my opinion. Feeling wonky and improvised, it just fits the area so much, considering once we've got the tree in place, it might just be a little hangout spot from people or children that wanted to access the island without getting wet all the time. So just put the bridges there to access it safely. Now the most important thing for this though is the tree, which we'll have to add now because the island ain't the island without the tree. I mean, it's just not the same cozy feeling, being all open like this. Sometimes in life, you just need a little oak tree to sit under. And with the last couple leaves in place, we've got our very own oak tree down here. which complements the entire area so much by creating another main point of interest with the bridges leading to it. More or less guiding your eyes onto the main focus, which in our case is the island and the tree. These dynamic lines, that's what they're called, are often used in quite literally any kind of art as a fundamental tool to create a sense of motion, guiding the viewer's eye and adding vitality to the art or certain parts of the artwork. In simple words, they just put focus on the main part of the build in our case. All the yapping aside, I don't really want any mobs to spawn here, so I thought of adding a couple hanging lanterns from the tree, which not just makes it look a bit more magical, but also solves our issue with mob proving. Having them in place, it's not actually looking too bad, in my opinion, and it's looking even better at night with no sunlight around. Additionally to the lanterns, I've thought about adding a little bench over here to watch the sunrise eventually. Which is why we might as well just do that real quick, considering I already took the materials with me. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Simple bench with trapdoors for the back probably works. Considering you actually want your arms to rest on the armrest, the shelves just make more sense, since they're a bit thicker than the trapdoors. Now, the only thing left to eventually enjoy the view from here is removing all the unnecessary moss over here. It just takes up way too much space on the screen. That out of the way though, we might actually be able to enjoy the view watching the sunrise later. Now while we're at it, I want to add a little platform for some old fishermen to fish on over here, which probably comes here in the very early morning to fish and eventually even enjoy the sunrise, sitting below our lovely oak tree. Now just a few more barrels and composter and then we're pretty much good. I don't really want something big here, so we'll just keep it very small and simple. Some improvised little platform to fish on. Now we're all done, but before I forget, a little shout out to Simply Knight. He makes lovely videos and insane builds, so definitely check him out guys, you can find him in the description. But yeah, your home is all done man, it's all yours, you can finally move in. But yeah, that's it for today, except for actually fishing and watching the sunrise. Coming to an end though, if you do find yourself comparing yourself a lot, just like I do, remember that you should build for yourself and no one else. There's no narrative you have to stick to, no one you have to keep up with. And even if you strive to get better, remember perfection is just a jail keeping you hostage, just like comparison does. At least when you compare yourself way too much. But yeah, there's so much to do and build out there, so build or do something you like, and instead of trying to make it perfect, just make it yours. That being said, thank you for watching, I appreciate every single one of you. Hope you had fun, and yeah, you can find all the mods used on my Discord, which is linked in the description, together with my Patreon. There will be a new word download on there today as well, so a special thank you to all my patrons, which are on the screen right now. And yeah, these were the second 1000 days into this world. So I guess I'll see you next time.